Mai Tanaka walked through the quiet streets of Ginza just as the morning sun began to warm the city. Though she had every right to take a limousine and bodyguards, today she chose a simple route. She slipped on a loose blouse and unassuming slacks, pulled her dark hair into a low ponytail, and put on a plain, unbranded visor cap. Her makeup was minimal, just enough to soften her sharp features without drawing attention. In her hand, she carried a canvas tote bag, inside of which she tucked a few personal items and the identification she would need to maintain her cover. Almost no one would recognize the elegant woman strolling along the polished sidewalks as the CEO and main owner of Sakura Financial Group, one of Japan's most respected banking institutions. She had considered using an alias, Yumi Ikeda, a name that sounded fairly ordinary and would not raise eyebrows. As she walked, she imagined how she would introduce herself. Polite, slightly reserved, with a faint regional accent that hinted she was from a smaller city rather than Tokyo. She practiced her briefcase-free approach to show she was just a regular customer, someone looking to open a new corporate account for her small business. She knew that hearing the word corporate might trigger staff to be more cautious, but that had a purpose: to see how her frontline employees handled someone who claimed to manage money on a larger scale. If they were careless, rude, or lazy, it would show cracks in the system she had worked so hard to build. In the days leading up to this visit, Mai had spent hours poring over customer feedback emails and complaint logs. A recent report had noted a surprising increase in grievances about long wait times, unhelpful responses, and inconsistent explanations of bank policies. She had personally reviewed several complaint letters where customers detailed their frustration at being shuffled from one desk to another, told contradictory information by different staff members, or made to feel unwelcome. For a bank of Sakura financial stature, even a small percentage of dissatisfied clients could tarnish its sterling reputation. Mai refused to believe these were isolated incidents. Instead, she suspected a broader problem with the branch culture, perhaps a lapse in staff training or morale. Mai was not new to leadership challenges. She had taken over Sakura Financial Group 5 years earlier, inheriting both its successes and its shortcomings. Under her direction, the bank had expanded to new markets, introduced more digital services, and earned praise for its corporate social responsibility programs. Yet she also knew that customer satisfaction depended heavily on the everyday interactions her employees had with clients. A smile, a patient explanation, or a timely solution could turn a routine visit into a memorable experience. Conversely, a curt reply or a dismissive gesture could drive customers away to competitors. To Mai, banking was not just about numbers on a balance sheet. It was about trust and human connection. This morning's plan was simple but bold. Spend a few hours at the flagship Ginza branch, see how things were really going, talk to people, both customers and staff, and identify any weak points firsthand. She had alerted only 2 people at headquarters: her longtime legal advisor, who would stand by in case anything went wrong, and the branch chairman, who needed to know the chain of command might shift abruptly if she revealed herself. Beyond that, no one else at the bank suspected a thing. It was her way of getting a true snapshot, without the usual filter of prepared speeches and staged meetings. As she approached the broad glass doors of the branch, Mai took a steadying breath. The modern building gleamed in the sunlight, its large windows revealing the activity within. Inside, she could see customers at various counters, a line forming near the reception desk, and employees moving with quiet efficiency. The polished marble floor reflected the soft overhead lights. Plants in simple, elegant pots added touches of green that softened the otherwise sleek interior. The overall feeling was one of professionalism and calm. Yet Mai knew that appearances could hide deeper issues. She stepped inside, nodding politely to the receptionist, a young woman with a clipboard who glanced at her through a thin, polite smile. "Good morning," Mai said in her practiced Yumi voice, soft but confident. "I'd like to open a corporate account. Could you direct me to the accounts department, please?" The receptionist tapped a folder, glanced down at her list, and nodded. "Please proceed to teller window number 3, she said, pointing down a clean corridor. "Mr. Sato will assist you." Mai thanked her and moved toward the sign that read Window 3, feeling the curious gaze of a few patrons and employees. She kept her head low, pretending not to notice the glances, but she memorized faces and noted the manner in which people gave her space or met her eyes. Window 3 was staffed by a clerk named Ryota Sato, a junior account officer in his late 20s. From the records Mai had reviewed, she knew that Sato was considered something of a rising star, a hard worker who followed rules to the letter. But she had also received whispers from supervisors that his dedication sometimes tipped into rigid enforcement of policies, leaving little room for flexibility or empathy. If a document did not have the exact stamp, he was known to send customers away. Perhaps that was exactly what Mai needed to see today, someone who prioritized procedure above service. Ryota greeted her crisply. His uniform was immaculate, his name tag polished so it caught the light. "Good morning," he said, standing up straighter. "How can I help you?" He slid a few forms across the counter in front of her. Mai accepted them with a polite nod and smiled, ensuring no hint of condescension or annoyance crept into her tone. "Thank you. I'm looking to open a corporate account. My company is Ezo Tech, and I need to start the process as soon as possible," she said, handing over a neatly typed sheet with an address, contact information, and a phone number. The address was that of a small manufacturing business based in Nagano, a place Ryota would not have reason to immediately connect to Mai. He took the paper and scanned it with a critical eye. "Corporate accounts require specific documentation," he began, his tone professional but caution creeping into his voice. "Trademark registration, tax certificates, proof of authorization. Do you have any of these?" Mai tapped her lips thoughtfully, as if surprised. "I've brought some documents," she said, glancing inside her tote bag. "But some of them might not be in order. Could you advise me on what exactly is required so I can have everything ready?" Ryota studied her face carefully. He probably noted that her answers were somewhat vague, but he decided to press on. He handed her a printed list: certificate of incorporation, board resolution, company seal registration, multiple copies of identification for all board members, and prepaid deposit slips. "You will need all of these or your application cannot move forward," he said firmly. She nodded, flipping through the list with sincere interest. "I want to make sure I do everything properly," Mai said, folding the papers and tucking them away. Ryota's eyes narrowed slightly. He was used to customers who knew exactly what they needed. Vague entrepreneurs irritated him. "You should also prepare audited financial statements and a letter from your current bank confirming a good standing," he continued, keeping his voice low enough not to disturb the other customers in line. Mai tried to look disappointed. "That might take some time," she said quietly. "I was hoping to have this done by the end of the week. Is there any way to expedite it?" Ryota looked at her straight in the eye. "If you do not have these documents, I cannot open the account," he said. His tone was polite but mechanical, like a gatekeeper who had already made up his mind. Mai's heart pounded slightly, but she controlled her breath. "I understand," she replied. "But I have spoken to some people at other banks, and they suggested that Sakura Financial might be more flexible if you could talk to someone in authority." Ryota's lips tightened. "Everyone must follow the same procedure," he said. "There are no exceptions." He handed her back her initial sheet and the filler forms, as though closing off the conversation. Mai took a moment to study his face. She saw a flicker of pride, almost arrogance, an assumption that he was right and anyone who questioned him was out of line. Perfect, she thought. She calmly set her tote bag on the counter and reached inside, quietly removing her small smartphone. Without raising her voice, she pretended to phone a friend. "Actually, could you hold on one moment?" she said into the phone. Ryota folded his arms and leaned back, clearly irritated at the unexpected delay. She turned ever so slightly so he could not see the screen clearly, and tapped a quick message to her legal advisor. She typed, "Ginza branch, possible issue, need backup." Then she turned off the phone, tucking it away as if it were part of her daily routine. Ryota cleared his throat and unfolded his arms. "Are you ready to proceed?" he asked. Mai shook her head. I need to check some things, she said. She gave him a polite nod and stepped back into the small line of about 4 customers waiting. As she moved aside, she took a steadying breath and let her posture relax once more. From her backpack pocket, she retrieved a small notebook with scribbled notes about staff interactions she had observed. She glanced at the names on uniforms. Ryota Sato, the receptionist, named Ayumi, while Mai moved quietly toward the counter where Ryota Sato stood. She felt a small flutter of nerves, but mostly she felt curious. She wanted to see how this young employee handled his work. As Yumi Ikeda, she had already told the receptionist that she needed to open a corporate account. Now, standing at the teller's window, she attempted to appear calm and respectful. Her voice was gentle as she spoke, with just a hint of nervousness. "Good morning," she said, offering a slight bow. "I would like to open a corporate account for my company. May I please have some guidance on the documents I need?" Ryota glanced at her, taking a moment to look her over. She wore a plain blouse and simple slacks, her hair tied back under a visor. Her bag was a neutral canvas tote, nothing flashy. He assumed she was a small business owner who had decided to try Sakura Financial Group after hearing good things about the bank's services. He smiled politely but kept his tone formal. "Corporate accounts require specific paperwork," he said. "You will need a certificate of incorporation, a board resolution, proof of your company seal registration, audited financial statements, and a letter from your current bank confirming your good standing." He tapped a printed form that lay on the counter, pushing it gently toward her. "Please review this list carefully. Without these documents, we cannot open an account." Mai took the list and nodded, scanning it quickly. She wanted to appear eager to comply. "Thank you," she said softly. The paper felt smooth in her hands. She folded it thoughtfully and placed it inside her tote. "I understand," she replied. "However, I have spoken with some people who suggested that at Sakura Financial, you sometimes help expedite documents if a customer has a good reason to open an account quickly. My company is working on a project that needs significant funding, and I hope to complete this process by the end of the week." Ryota studied her face closely. He noticed her polite smile but also sensed the urgency in her tone. He had heard that some clients tried to charm or intimidate staff into bending the rules. He straightened his posture and shook his head gently. "I'm sorry," he said. "Every client must follow the same process. We have strict guidelines and cannot make exceptions. It is bank policy that we require all documentation before proceeding. Nothing can be done without it." His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of finality. Mai listened carefully, allowing a small crease to appear between her brows, as if she were truly concerned. She reached into her bag once more and handed him a photocopy of what she claimed was her certificate of incorporation and the board resolution. The documents looked real enough at first glance. Ryota picked them up, unfolded each page, and inspected them. He glanced at the fine print and the signatures, then set them aside. "These are not sufficient," he said after a moment. "The certificate of incorporation must be the original document. The photocopy is not acceptable." He tapped the papers in a slow, deliberate manner. Mai's face remained composed, but inside she felt a spark of amusement. She had anticipated this reaction. She kept her tone soft as she replied, "I apologize. I brought a copy today, but I can retrieve the original if that is necessary. I did not think a copy would be a problem for a preliminary review." Ryota raised an eyebrow. "A preliminary review still requires the original. We cannot even accept a notarized copy," he said firmly. He handed the documents back as he spoke. "You may return with the original certificate of incorporation and the registered seal. Until then, I cannot begin the account opening process." Mai took a deep breath and managed a small bow. She folded her hands in front of her, as if gathering courage. "I see," she said. Her voice was polite, but the tension in her shoulders grew just a fraction. "Is there anything else I could do to speed things up?" My company is on a tight deadline and it would mean a great deal if you could help me. Ryota glanced around the lobby briefly, then leaned slightly forward, lowering his voice though there was hardly anyone else nearby. I understand financial deadlines can be stressful, he said quietly. But I have to follow the rules. If you cannot provide the required documents, there is nothing more I can do. His tone was firm and there was no hint of compromise. Mai nodded, hiding a small smile. She had wanted to see how he'd react under pressure. She had already learned that he valued procedure over empathy. She decided to press a bit further, hoping to confirm that he was rigid enough to create a real conflict. If I were to get a bank manager to confirm this exception, would that help? She asked. I could speak to someone higher up. Ryota shook his head firmly. The branch manager has the same policies. No one can override these requirements. You must have the original documents. He slid the printed list away and stood up straighter. If you have nothing more, then I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. His eyes held a note of finality that surprised Mai. She had expected him to soften if she mentioned the manager, but he stood his ground. She realized that she had found someone determined to stick to the rules no matter what. She felt pleased because this meant her experiment was revealing a genuine issue. Staff who would rather follow a rigid script than help a customer in need. In her mind, she made a note to review his performance and consider retraining him if necessary. She thanked him quietly, gathered her belongings, and gave him a polite bow before stepping back. As she turned to leave, Ryota called out in a slightly louder voice, If you bring the original documents, my supervisor will be happy to assist you. His tone was polite, but there was an edge to it, as though he believed he had done his job well and expected the customer to accept his decision. Something in Mai's expression must have pierced a chord of impatience within him. She paused, turned slightly so she could see him over her shoulder, and gave a small, respectful nod. She did not speak. Instead, she walked back toward the row of seats where customers waited. For a moment, Ryota watched her go with a look of quiet satisfaction, convinced he had handled the situation correctly. From his perspective, he had been polite and clear. He had enforced policy without hesitation. Back at the seating area, Mai sat down. She unclasped her tote bag and retrieved her small smartphone, pretending to check a message. No one seemed to pay much attention, but she memorized his name tag and the neat crease in his uniform. He wore a pen clipped to his shirt pocket and had the posture of someone who took pride in his work. She thought about how simple changes, maybe a reminder to staff that customers sometimes had genuine emergencies, could help him improve his service. At that moment, another customer approached the window. He was a middle-aged man whose face was slightly flushed. He held a stack of documents and spoke with a worried tone. I need to transfer a large sum to an overseas supplier, the man explained to Ryota. The shipment is due tomorrow and I have to pay. Ryota glanced at the papers the man laid on the counter and then at the clock on the wall. The clock told him it was nearly noon, but local regulations required at least one business day to process such a large international transfer. He leaned forward, keeping his voice calm but firm. I'm sorry, he said to the man. We require at least 1 day's advance notice for an overseas transfer of any significant amount. If you complete this form and return tomorrow morning, we can process it then. The man's face turned red as he realized the gravity of the situation. But my supplier is in a strict schedule, he protested, his voice shaking. They must be paid today, or they will hold up production. I'm asking for a small extension, just today. Please, I'm a long-time customer. Ryota sighed. He had heard stories like this before. He glanced at the man's documents, which seemed to check out account balance, identification, and so on. But policy was policy. He looked at the man's drooping shoulders and the desperation in his eyes. I understand, Ryota said, his tone softening slightly, though he did not change his decision. I want to help, but I cannot override the rule. You must return tomorrow. The man's eyes filled with frustration and fear. He clenched his documents tightly in one hand as if to physically hold himself together. Is there nothing you can do? He asked, his voice trembling. Ryota shook his head, but his face betrayed a hint of regret. Even he understood how strict adherence to policy could leave a genuine customer in a difficult position. Mai listened, while keeping her head down. She watched as the man's shoulders sagged, and she saw the corners of Ryota's mouth tighten. She made a quick mental note. If employees had been reminded that some emergencies were real, maybe they would pause for a moment before using the bank's rules to dismiss a customer in need. The man left with a heavy step, his documents tucked under his arm. As he walked away, other customers glanced at him, noting his distress. Some whispered as they moved on to their own transactions. Ryota went back to cleaning his counter area, stacking forms neatly and checking his computer screen. Mai saw a moment of relief on his face, as if he believed his strictness had been for the best. She took a slow breath and stood up. She walked back to his window with a calm expression, making sure she caught his attention. He looked up, offering a neutral nod. She took a steadying breath and spoke in a clearer voice than before, letting a note of authority slip through even as she maintained her. Mai felt the firm grip of the guard's hand as he led her down a short corridor toward a small back office. Her heart beat steadily, but she kept her face calm and expression neutral, giving the impression of a confused visitor rather than the powerful CEO she truly was. The guard Kenji was a tall man with a kind face, and his voice was gentle as he asked, "Are you sure you're okay, ma'am?" Mai nodded slowly, her eyes fluttering as though she struggled to keep them open. "I think so," she murmured. "Thank you for helping me." As they reached the back office, Kenji guided Mai to a simple chair by a small table. The room was modest. Plain walls, a window overlooking a service alley, and a few folding chairs. Another guard stood near the door, arms crossed and alert. Mai settled into the seat, clasping her hands in her lap, taking a moment to collect her thoughts. She watched Kenji's uniformed back as he spoke quietly on his radio, presumably reporting to the higher-ups about the situation. From her vantage point, Mai could see past the narrow window in the door that a few employees gathered outside, whispering among themselves. Ryota Sato, the young account officer, remained behind the teller window. He surveyed the lobby with an uneasy expression. Part of him believed he had done everything right, enforced policy and followed procedure when she first came without the correct papers. But now, after he inquired about her condition and learned she felt unwell, he questioned himself for a brief moment. He glanced at his computer screen as if searching for a solution, but found none. He did not realize that the woman he had helped into the back office was the very owner of the bank. To him, she was that customer who complained about the delay, and now suddenly seemed to be a potential medical case. Meanwhile, Mai retrieved her smartphone from her tote bag, which she had tucked under the table to rest her arm against. She opened a secure messaging app and typed a brief alert to her legal advisor. Ginza branch back office. Situation serious, please come. She left her message plain, not revealing her true status but signaling urgency. Then she slipped the phone back into her bag and sat very still, making sure every movement appeared slow and labored. She observed, quietly, as the guard checked her pulse and offered her a bottle of water. She took it with a soft sigh, and the clink of the plastic bottle sounded unusually loud in the small room. Outside, the lobby bustled with curious eyes. A few tellers paused in their work to peek through the glass doors, murmuring about the sudden drama. The receptionist, Ayumi, hovered near the corridor entrance, pacing back and forth as though expecting someone important at any moment. Hiroshi, a senior teller, leaned against a counter, arms folded, eyebrows knit in concern. Even Emmy, a quiet customer service associate, had stopped her tasks and stared anxiously at the corridor. Everyone felt that an unusual tension had gripped the branch. No one knew for certain what had happened, only that a customer had been escorted away by security, and that Ryota had seemed especially firm before his concern had softened. In the back office, Kenji pulled up a small folding chair and sat across from Mai. He folded his hands respectfully and asked in a low voice, "Do you remember where you feel pain, ma'am?" Mai pressed her cheek lightly as though in discomfort. "My head, maybe my cheek," she whispered. It hurts where he hit me. Kenji frowned slightly but nodded. I'll get you some ice and call for medical staff. Just rest. Here. He rose and left the room, closing the door behind him so that Mai could no longer see the whispers out in the lobby. Within moments, a small medical kit appeared at the doorway, carried by another guard named Satoshi, who knelt down to check Mai's condition. Mai let him examine her carefully, pressing a gentle hand against her cheek while he inspected it for bruises or swelling. He used a soft voice to ask simple questions. Can you move your jaw? Is the pain severe? Mai answered each question, calmly, conveying enough discomfort to justify being detained for further assessment. Satoshi applied a cold pack to her cheek and offered more water. Mai thanked him quietly, leaning forward to rest her head against the cold pack as if the relief was genuine. While the guards tended to Mai, a small group of employees gathered outside the door, peering inside with a mix of shock and confusion. Ayumi, the receptionist, tugged at her collar nervously. What happened to her? She asked Hiroshi, who stood next to her. Hiroshi shook his head. I don't know exactly, but Ryota said she was unwell and needed medical attention. I thought she was just dizzy, but now I hear she claims he hit her. Ayumi's eyes widened. Hit her? Why would he do that? That customer looked fragile. Emi, who stood slightly behind them, spoke softly. Do you think she called the police? I heard something about security arresting her. Ayumi frowned deeply. I don't know, Emi. But if a customer was really slapped, that's a big problem, especially if she plans to report it. Back in the back office, Mai let the cold pack rest on her face for a few more minutes, feigning exhaustion. Then she straightened and took a deliberate breath as if to steady herself. She knew the staff outside were watching the door, waiting for signs of drama. She wanted to maintain the illusion of genuine distress, so that when she eventually emerged, they would be more likely to fault Ryota for heavy-handed behavior. As she rose from the chair, she heard whispering footsteps approaching. Kenji and Satoshi stood in the doorway, their faces serious. We need to bring you to the main office now, Kenji said quietly. We've called medical professionals, but they're still on their way. For now, the branch manager wants to speak with you. Please follow us. Mai nodded gratefully, listening as Kenji helped her to her feet. She held her tote bag in one hand, the contents shifting inside, and used her other hand to steady herself by briefly touching the wall. The guards guided her back down the corridor to the main office, opening the door for her to enter. The room was slightly larger than the back office, furnished with a desk, a few chairs, and framed photos of Sakura Financial's early founders. Sunlight streamed in through a narrow window, casting a soft glow over the polished wood floor. Ayako Shimizu, the branch manager, sat behind the desk with a tablet in her hand. Her face was a mixture of concern and authority. Mai? She said, rising as Mai entered. I heard you weren't feeling well. Are you okay? Mai kept her head lowered as if embarrassed. I'm managing, she answered in her soft, Yumi Ikeda voice. I feel weak, but I appreciate your concern. Ayako moved around the desk and took a seat in one of the guest chairs, gesturing for Mai to sit as well. The two guards stood behind Mai, ensuring she did not stumble. The atmosphere in the room was tense, with the distant sounds of chattering employees from the lobby audible through the slightly ajar door. Ayako set her tablet on the desk and looked at Mai intently. I heard something serious happened, Ayako said. Our security reported that you were slapped. That is unacceptable behavior. I want to understand exactly what occurred. Mai shifted slightly in her seat, wincing as though the slightest movement caused pain. Yes, she whispered. I asked for help opening a corporate account, but Mr. Sato insisted I didn't have the correct documents. When I tried to explain my situation, he became angry. He slapped me and then ordered security to place me under arrest. I felt so embarrassed and hurt. Ayako's eyes narrowed. She turned to the guards. Kenji, is there a copy of the CCTV recording from the lobby camera? Kenji nodded. Yes, ma'am. We have the full footage. Ayako tapped her tablet, opening a file folder. "Show me everything," she said, her voice firm but controlled. As the guards played the recording, a hush settled over the room. Mai sat quietly, head tilted slightly, as she watched herself stumbling from the counter after Ryota's hand struck her face. Ayako watched the footage with rising disbelief. She saw Ryota standing sternly at his window, then suddenly extending his arm to slap Mai. Her hand flew to her cheek. She stumbled and fell backward. Kenji and Satoshi rushed in, helping her to her feet. The scene felt surreal. Mai felt a knot of pity for her disguised self, taken by surprise and spoken down to. When the footage ended, Ayako took a deep breath. She swung her gaze back to Mai. "I'm very sorry this happened," she said quietly. "No customer should ever be treated this way, even if the paperwork was not correct." "Can you tell me exactly what led to the slap?" Mai hesitated, keeping her expression gentle. "I only asked for help," she explained. "But he dismissed me, saying I did not understand the documents. When I became upset and tried to suggest that someone in a higher position could help, he lost his temper. He said I was wasting his time. Then he hit me. It all felt so sudden." Ayako nodded slowly, her face troubled. She tapped the desk once before rising and moving to stand beside Mai. "I want you to rest here for a while, and then we will contact the police to ensure your complaint is filed properly. I will also speak with Human Resources about this." "Thank you for sharing everything. You deserve better treatment." As Ayako spoke, Mai laid her hand lightly on the desk, letting her posture convey both relief and lingering pain. She carefully maintained her gentle, hurt expression, hoping Ayako would take rapid action. A knock sounded at the door and Kenji peeked in with an apologetic look. "Branch chairman and legal advisor have arrived." The room fell into silence as Mai sat across from Ayako Shimizu, the branch manager. The soft tick of the clock on the wall seemed louder than usual. Ayako was still processing everything: the slap, the security involvement, the video footage. But what confused her most was the presence of the chairman of the bank and a high-level legal advisor. Both had arrived faster than anyone had expected, and they weren't treating the customer, Yumi Ikeda, as just any customer. Their respectful tone, the urgency in their behavior, and the way they deferred to her, it all made Ayako suspicious. Ayako folded her hands on her desk and leaned slightly forward. "Miss Ikeda," she began cautiously, "may I ask something a little unusual?" Mai raised her eyes slowly. "Of course," she said softly, still keeping her tone gentle and polite. Ayako continued. "When I saw how the chairman and the legal advisor addressed you, it felt like they knew you from before. Are you someone more than just a customer?" For a moment, Mai didn't speak. Then, with a calm breath, she pulled off her visor and gently set it on the desk. Her eyes met Ayako's. "Yes," she said quietly, her voice no longer pretending to be someone else. "My name is Mai Tanaka. I am the CEO and majority owner of Sakura Financial Group." The words settled in the air like a stone dropped into a still pond. Ayako blinked. Her hands trembled slightly. You're the CEO?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you were just..." She looked at the now familiar tote bag, the simple clothes, the polite speech. It had all been a disguise. A powerful one. Mai gave a slight nod. "I visited this branch today as a regular customer because I needed to see how clients are truly treated. Not through reports, not through meetings, but through real experience." Ayako sat back in her chair, stunned. She felt the weight of what had just been revealed. Her staff had unknowingly slapped, insulted, and attempted to arrest the owner of the bank. The entire situation had changed in an instant. Just then the door opened again and Mr. Nakamura, the chairman, entered with Mr. Fujimoto, the legal advisor. Both gave small bows to Ayako, but turned immediately to Mai. "We've confirmed your instructions," Mr. Fujimoto said respectfully. "The video has been saved. The security report is complete. We await your next decision." Ayako looked between them, still too shocked to speak. Mai stood slowly, her posture tall and graceful. "Please ask Mr. Sato to come to this office," she said firmly. Ayako, still recovering, nodded quickly and called the receptionist. "Tell Mr. Sato to report to my office immediately," she said. A few minutes later, Ryota Sato entered. His face was pale. His tie was slightly loose and his hands were clenched nervously. He had no idea what was waiting for him behind the door. As he walked in, he noticed the chairman, the legal advisor, and the branch manager standing near the desk. But the sight that shocked him most was the woman he had slapped. She was standing now, facing him directly, not with weakness, but with strength and calm authority. Ryota's steps slowed. His eyes widened. Something in Mai's expression had changed. She looked at him not as a customer, but as someone in charge. He began to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. "Ma'am, I didn't mean to." Mai raised her hand gently, to stop him. Her voice was not loud, but it was firm. "Mr. Sato," she said, "do you know who I am?" Ryota shook his head slowly. I thought you were a difficult customer," he said. "I didn't recognize you." Mai nodded. "That much is clear. Let me introduce myself again. I am Mai Tanaka. I am the CEO and primary owner of Sakura Financial Group. This bank, this branch, belongs to me." Ryota's face lost all color. He swayed slightly as though the floor had shifted under his feet. I didn't know," he whispered. "I truly didn't know." Mai's gaze remained steady. "And yet you treated a customer, any customer, with harshness, impatience, and even physical force. Would you say that matches the values we expect from our employees?" Ryota opened his mouth, searching for words. "I was trying to follow procedure. I didn't want to break any rules." "You followed procedure," Mai agreed. "But you forgot something far more important. Kindness, understanding, listening. You didn't see a person who needed help. You only saw a problem." Silence filled the room. Mai continued. "You slapped a customer, you embarrassed her. You accused her falsely and called security to detain her, all without listening, all without asking the right questions." She paused. "And now you are standing before the owner of this bank, not just a regular customer." Ryota's eyes dropped to the floor. He could not meet her gaze. His voice was small when he spoke. "I made a mistake. I thought I was protecting the bank." Mai took a step closer. "And now I must protect the bank too, from those who treat people unfairly. I believe in second chances, Mr. Sato. But there are times when the actions are too serious to ignore." She turned slightly to Mr. Fujimoto. "Please begin the formal termination process." Ryota's breath caught. He looked up, panic in his eyes. "Please. Don't fire me. I didn't know. I'll do better." Mai's face softened, but only slightly. "You had a choice at every moment. You chose pride over patience, policy over understanding, and now you must live with that choice." She gave a small nod to the legal advisor. "Make sure all protocols are followed. He is to leave today and we will make arrangements to remove his access to the branch systems." Mr. Fujimoto responded quietly. "Yes, ma'am." Ryota looked around the room helplessly. His career had ended in a moment. He turned toward Ayako, but she could only look at him with regret. He bowed his head and slowly walked out of the room, guided by Mr. Fujimoto. After a long silence, Ayako spoke. "I never imagined this would happen. I didn't know things were this serious." Mai looked at her calmly. "You didn't know because no one expects their boss to come in disguise, but that is why I do it, to see the truth." She placed her hands gently on the edge of the desk. "I'm not here to scare anyone. I'm here to fix what's broken." Ayako nodded. "What would you like me to do now?" Mai gave a thoughtful pause. "We'll start by reviewing staff training. I want to meet with the full branch team tomorrow morning. Everyone will be told who I am and why I came." She looked around the office once more. "This branch is a reflection of our whole company. If we can improve things here, we can do it everywhere." Ayako agreed quickly, already making notes. Yes, of course, I'll prepare everything. As Mai gathered her bag, she placed her visor gently inside. She was no longer in disguise. She was now the CEO again. And more than that, a leader who had seen the truth for herself. As she stepped out of the office and back into the lobby, employees paused and stared. Whispers began. Word had already started to spread. One brave teller stepped forward. "Ma'am, are you really the CEO?" he asked. Mai smiled. "Yes, and I'll be visiting more branches soon. Maybe I'll wear a disguise, maybe not. But I promise you, every visit will be about one thing: how we treat people." There was silence. Then one by one the staff bowed, not out of fear, but out of respect. Mai walked calmly toward the exit. Her steps were quiet, but her presence filled the space. Outside, the city continued its usual rhythm, but inside the Ginza branch, everything had changed. ChatGPT said. The next morning, the Ginza branch felt different. The usual quiet buzz of early customers, printers humming, and keyboards tapping had a new energy mixed in. Whispers moved from desk to desk, and employees looked at each other with wide eyes. Everyone was talking about the same thing: the customer who turned out to be the CEO. At exactly 9 a.m., Ayako Shimizu, the branch manager, stood in the center of the staff meeting room. Her voice was calm, but her expression was serious. "Good morning, everyone. I know yesterday was a difficult day for this branch. We had a situation that taught us an important lesson about how we treat others." She paused, looking at the room full of employees. Then she stepped aside and gestured to the doorway. A hush fell over the room. Mai Tanaka stepped in. Gone was the visor and tote bag. Today she wore a clean, professional suit. Her posture was tall, her gaze calm, and her presence filled the room without her saying a single word. Some employees gasped softly. Others straightened their backs, their eyes wide with recognition. Mai walked to the front of the room and gave a small bow. "Good morning," she said. "I am Mai Tanaka. I am the CEO of Sakura Financial Group. Yesterday I visited this branch not as your leader, but as a customer, undercover, in a simple outfit without a title, just like the people who walk in every day needing help." Her voice was clear, steady but gentle. "What I experienced yesterday taught me more than any report or meeting ever could. Some of you treated me kindly. You answered questions, you smiled, you tried to help. But others treated me like a burden. I was not given a fair chance. I was spoken to with impatience. I was judged by my clothes and my confusion." A soft wave of discomfort moved through the room. Some staff members looked down. Others shifted in their chairs. Everyone was listening. "I do not share this to shame anyone," Mai continued. "I share this because I believe this can be a turning point for all of us." She walked slowly in front of the group, making eye contact as she spoke. "Our bank has grown over the years. We have new technology, better offices, stronger profits. But none of that matters if we forget how to treat people. A bank is more than money. It's a place where people put their trust." She stopped for a moment. "Yesterday, one of our team members made a mistake, a serious one. But this isn't only about that one person. It's about the culture we build together. Every customer who walks into this building should be treated with care and respect, no matter who they are, where they come from, or how they dress." A few employees nodded quietly. Some had tears in their eyes. They understood. Mai's voice softened. "I will not pretend this is easy. We all have busy days, long lines, difficult clients. But kindness does not cost anything. Listening does not slow us down. And a little patience can build trust that lasts a lifetime." She turned, back to face Ayako and the rest of the leadership team. "From today forward, we are starting a new training program across all branches. We'll focus on communication, empathy, and real customer experience. Every staff member will attend, and I will personally visit more branches, sometimes announced, sometimes not." At that moment, the staff realized this was not a one-time visit. Their CEO wasn't watching from a distance. She was among them now. Then Mai took a deep breath and smiled softly. "I want to thank those of you who handled your duties with grace. You make this bank stronger every day. For those who felt challenged by yesterday's events, this is your chance to grow. Mistakes are part of learning, but change only comes when we accept those lessons. She gave another small bow. I am proud of the good work Sakura Financial does. Let's continue, building something even better together. The room stayed silent for a moment, then filled with quiet applause. Not loud or forced, but heartfelt. A respectful show of appreciation, not just for her title, but for the honesty and care she had shown. Later that day, word of the incident spread across other branches. Some staff were shocked, others were inspired, and all of them received the same internal message, a personal letter from Mai Tanaka, sharing her experience and her plans for improvement. At the Ginza branch, changes began quickly. Customer service desks were rearranged to offer more privacy. Waiting areas became more welcoming, with signs that encouraged people to ask questions. But the biggest change was in the staff themselves. They greeted each customer with more attention. They paused to listen. They remembered that behind every account number was a human being. Even Ayako, the branch manager, began holding short daily meetings to talk about service goals, sharing examples of good interactions and discussing ways to improve. She encouraged her team to support each other, especially on hard days. One day, a customer came in, a man who looked tired and slightly unsure of the paperwork he held. He approached the counter nervously. The teller, Emmy, smiled warmly and said, "Take your time. Let's look at it together." That moment, small and simple, was exactly the kind of change Mai had hoped to see. As for Ryota Sato, his story took a different turn. After his dismissal, he spent several weeks reflecting on his choices. He realized he had let pride and pressure guide his actions. He had followed the rules, yes, but forgot the reason behind them. He read articles about customer service. He watched videos on communication, and eventually he enrolled in a training program focused on people skills and leadership. Though embarrassed by how he left the bank, Ryota hoped to start fresh. In time, he found work at a smaller financial company, where he applied everything he had learned. He was quieter now, more patient, and more thoughtful. He never forgot the lesson that one moment of poor judgment could change everything. Back at Sakura Financial Group, Mai continued her quiet visits, sometimes in a formal suit, sometimes in simple clothes. She blended in with the morning crowd, asked small questions at teller windows, and listened. She smiled at security guards and asked receptionists about their day. Her goal wasn't to catch mistakes, but to catch moments of kindness and reward them. Months later, customer satisfaction ratings across all branches rose steadily. Clients reported feeling more welcomed and understood. The bank's public image grew stronger, not because of flashy campaigns, but because of something far simpler: trust. Inside the boardroom, Mai shared these results with her team. "We didn't need to rebuild the bank," she told them. "We only needed to remind everyone of our purpose, to serve people with respect, no matter who they are." The room nodded in agreement. As the meeting ended, Mai looked out the window of the high-rise building. The streets below were full of people going about their lives: students, workers, parents, shopkeepers. Any one of them might walk into a Sakura Financial branch today. And thanks to what happened at Ginza, they'd walk out feeling seen and valued. Mai smiled, knowing that behind every great company was not just a strong leader, but a team that truly cared. And that, more than anything, was what made Sakura Financial Group truly successful. The end.